FMG stands for Fulton Market Group. I'll explain why in a tick, but we were formed 5 years ago, and we were on the back of an effort from McDonald's to consolidate their beef supply chain in the US. When we started, it was a brand new entity, clean sheet of paper, no team, no tech, no finance, etc., and we've built that over the last 5 years. It's been an interesting 5 years. African swine fever, COVID, floods, droughts, CO2 shortages, labour shortages, volatile markets, Ukraine, etc. So it's certainly been an interesting 5 years. As I said, FMG stands for Fulton Market Group. Fulton Market is the area in Chicago, in the West Loop, where the meat packing industry started. So that's what we stand for, Fulton Market Group. It's a little bit different today. It's actually become quite a trendy region in Chicago, and McDonald's actually moved there, and so they've moved their corporate office there. And so we in setting that business up 5 years ago, we located next door to them, as we are 100% dedicated to McDonald's. They are our only customer, and so we felt being next to them was important for them. McDonald's made the decision to consolidate their supply chain for a few reasons. One is the obvious one, which is better coordinating how they were purchasing, bringing together some leverage to buy stuff better, move stuff around the place better, and manage their supply chain. But probably equally importantly for McDonald's was to use their scale and leverage to do things. And the things right now are focused, as Jason touched on earlier, around sustainability efforts, animal welfare efforts, social welfare, etc. But right now, using their scale to focus on sustainability efforts to meet their commitments that they've made going forward through 2030 and 2050. This effort is, from our point of view, this is what do we do? What do we do is we basically start from forecasting markets. So we sit and we forecast markets, we think where prices are going to go, how markets are going to move over the next 12, 18, 24 months. Then we set procurement strategy around that, and we execute against that. Which, importantly, we finance the flow of product as well, and I think that makes us, it enables us to have a different conversation as the principal in the transaction. And then in that supply chain, we manage that flow. That's, putting meat on boats, having trucks deliver on time, managing cold storage in the US and other markets that we deal with as well. Risk management from our point of view is very important, and that's not just around financial risk management. That's around assuring supply, diversifying supply, making sure that we have product there and keep our factories moving. So around that, as Erica mentioned, we supply 70% of McDonald's beef and pork globally, and that keeps us busy. So our model is a consolidated cost plus and fully transparent model. So if we buy meat at $1 a pound, we sell it at $1 a pound. If a truck costs us $500 to move, we pay $500, and then we charge an agreed fee for our service. So that enables that transparency of data and information, which I'll touch on a little bit down the track. It creates that transparency and enables that flow through of information, which I think will help with efforts that we're working on down the track. We buy from 125 packing establishments around the world. We supply 21 factories that make stuff for McDonald's, both beef and pork, who then deliver into those distribution centres. This shows that historically our relationships have gone back to the packer, and I think going forward increasingly we're going to need to engage in a deeper way on a producer or farm level, mainly around these sustainability efforts that McDonald's are having a look at. In order to do that, we've got 45 people around the world in 4 offices, headquartered in Chicago, and Sydney. So our APMEA, Asia Pacific, Middle East and Africa office is in Sydney. And we're in, as I said, Fulton Market in Chicago there. We also have a couple of satellite offices, one in Oklahoma City, which is primarily around our pork business, and in Buenos Aires, which deals with South American increasing volumes that we're moving into Asia there. Obviously, people are the most important thing in our business. They are the face of us interacting and procuring and moving the beef around, so we spend a lot of time and effort on ensuring that we have the best people possible. As you'll see in a minute, we're moving a reasonable amount of meat around the world, so 45 people is reasonably low. In order to do that, we've spent a lot of time and effort and money on technology. I don't think we can put enough money into technology. We do that to enable transparency for our customers so that they can see into the supply chain, they can see where their meat comes from, they can see the quality aspects and the meat performance. But we do that selfishly from an automation point of view. I want to automate our processes as much as possible. Overheads are my biggest cost, so I want to keep them low. I want to automate as much as possible. But that also enables accuracy. You involve people in data and mistakes are made, so we spend a lot of time and effort into that. So that's our business. Here's where we operate. The darker blue is both sourcing and destination. Jason had a great slide there showing where all the beef comes from around the world. We buy from the main exporting markets there: Australia, US, New Zealand, Canada, Brazil, Argentina, UK, Ireland. On the beef side, on the pork side, primarily US and Canada. It's just starting to go into Europe there. We're actually running an assessment at the moment on EU beef and poultry, and we'll likely open an office there to consolidate McDonald's business there too. So there's basically 7 major sourcing regions that we supply into 20 different markets. We're using this scale then to deliver that McDonald's on their transparency. The business started in the US, as I said, 5 years ago, and McDonald's enjoyed and liked the transparency in the supply chain and the benefits it gave them, so we fairly quickly took on the Canadian market, and then we purchased the business here in Australia, which was Mac, or Agri-Foods. Mac, those of you who were around 15 years or so ago may remember from the Mac Angus days, the Mac was that business. So we bought that, and in the last 18 months of bringing pork into the business too. So that's our footprint. Here's what we do. So we've sort of moved, this year we'll move about 450,000 tonnes of beef and about 120,000 tonnes of pork. That's about 10,000, a little bit over 10,000 tonnes a week. As Erica mentioned, that represents about 70% of our global beef requirements, and pork for McDonald's. The Europe business will lift that as well. From an Australian point of view, it's interesting, and you've probably heard this stat a few times, but Australia is really key to this strategy. I mean, of that 450, maybe 80 or 90,000 Australian, but the Australian beef is in 70% of McDonald's restaurants globally. You know, so there's 7,000 restaurants around the world, and Aussie beef is in 70% of those to some degree. Might be 1%, might be 100%, but it's therefore super important and critical for the McDonald's system that the situation in Australia remains as it is. I mean, I think that from a supply point of view, it's super important, but from a quality and sustainability standards point of view, it's super important as well. We think those numbers will lift even without Europe this year, just based on some increased sales. So now a little bit about Angus. So we purchase about 7,500 tonnes on average over the last 5 years. This is Australian numbers. It peaked in 2019 at about 9,000 tonnes. 56% is exported, 44% stays here in Australia. Thanks, mate. that's good. Okay, thanks. So I've just flipped past. So I mean, this is back to the. You obviously, Peter. We worked closely with Michael Pointer and Phil Morley to set this up back in 2008, 2009. This is actually the launch that we had a little party down at in Balmain on the harbour, which was a good day. You can see Peter here enjoying himself. So. 7,500 tonnes over the last 5 years, peaked at about 9,000. COVID really knocked it around, and that's primarily because the volumes into China backed right off. I think I've got a graph coming shortly which will show the China volumes, but that China is really important for the Angus, for us, Angus out of Australia into Asia. I'll just run through a couple of these burgers which are really important. So McDonald's Australia has these two that are permanent fixtures on the menu. There's not too many menus around the world that have Angus permanently on the menu. These two are, and they're backed up by these LTOs, the limited time offers, which are really good, and they've spiked sales quite significantly. This one was in January and was very successful. China. So there's a few stats here for you. I mean, it's about a third of our volume goes to China. It's our second biggest market for Angus. They have 4 burgers permanently on their menu, and it is about 20% of their sales. And I think that's significant in that we are already seeing a rebound in Angus requirements into China as they start to open up again. And there is some significant restaurant growth coming as well in China over the next 5 years. So if we maintain that 20%, I think we'll see those volumes sort of move quite significantly. We've already done more this year, Angus to China, than we did for the whole of last year. The Malaysian and Taiwanese markets use it on a regular basis as well, over these 2 burgers, and from a Singapore, Korea and the UAE are in and out on a limited time offer basis. So it's there, it's in people's minds, and it's important in the McDonald's system. And importantly for this group, this meat comes out of Australia, right? So a little bit out of New Zealand, but primarily Australia, not US or Canada. There are an occasional LTO limited time offers in North America, which could be an opportunity for this part of the world as well, but nothing as permanent as down here. Here's the graph I referenced. So you can see China really ran up in 19 and then backed off with COVID. But I think we're going to see that build again, and I think there's some great opportunity for us there. So that's a bit about Angus. But now I just thought I'd talk a little bit about our business and what we're focusing on, as well as the day-to-day operations of buying, moving and paying for meat. And we look at 3 buckets of real importance for our business, right? And it aligns with our customers' as primary thoughts, and they are around resiliency, sustainability and digitisation. And resiliency for us means a few things, but it's making sure restaurants never run out of meat. And we're proud to say that we didn't run McDonald's out of meat through COVID in the US. Most other chains ran out. We didn't, and that was game on. I mean, the kill was down to 40% of the kill, and everyone wanted ground beef because they wanted to stick them in their fridges to hibernate. And so that was challenging, and that was really the making of our business, I must say, because we managed to get through that. We're looking at supply chain diversification, and by what that I mean there is changing practice. So the Japanese, for example, in McDonald's have always used a large percentage of Australian meat, and as we know, for the last 3 years, Australian meat has been in short supply due to the rebuild, but we need to fill our restaurants. So we're looking at where we can bring that meat in there to keep them going. Now that, as Jason points out, there'll be more Aussie meat around, that's fine, but we've created contingency there in case down the track. China will be, from a diversification point of view, a major part of our focus over the next few years. It'll be Australian, it'll be Brazilian, it'll be New Zealand and US and possibly Canadian and Irish, and there's a lot of work to be done there. From a resiliency point of view, and it's not so immediately apparent, but it's something that's front of my mind, and I think about a lot, is from a financial point of view, banks, access to capital. I think that banks are going to be asking all of us at every point of the supply chain for different bits of information in order to allow them to lend. And I think we're going to see split lending rates around those that have that data and those that don't, and that worries me a little bit. I'll get to that in a minute. So resilience is really important for us, and it's a major focus. Sustainability for us is around hitting our customers' public commitments out to 2030 and 2050, and given we buy the percentage of beef that we do, a lot of that falls back to us. And so I'll get to some of the things we're having a look at in a minute. But digitalisation, and I know that's sort of an easy word. Well, it's not that easy to say, much so, but it's a word bandied around a lot. But it's to my mind, it's so crucial for all of us in our businesses that we're able to capture this data and then be able to, and willing to share, not confidential stuff, but just such that we can really hand on heart defend what we do and be able to demonstrate in a verified way about what the outputs that we're delivering on. So we're looking to digitise at every point of the supply chain. We're integrating with the further processes that we supply to. We're integrating with the packers. We're integrating with all our vendors that move stuff around for us, our banks, so that they can have access to that information. And as I said, historically, we've only had to have a relationship with the packers, and it's worked really well. And we don't want to necessarily have a direct relationship around buying livestock, but we do want to be able to understand data around livestock and how they've been raised, and so that can tie into what we're trying to do in a seamless way. And I think there'll be benefits for all of us, as I say, with banks and other requirements. It also allows us to make better, quicker our teams' decisions, because it's not like it was 20 years ago, on a trading desk buying meat. Things are changing very rapidly, and so we need our people to be resilient and agile and dynamic and be able to change that, and data allows them to do that. So in a perfect world, we'd find projects that are right in the middle of all three of those, and that deliver on resiliency, deliver on the digitisation that we're after, and deliver on sustainability requirements. And we think we're starting to. Here's a few that we're looking at. Right, this beef on dairy thing I think is really interesting, and probably interesting for your group. It's large in the US and growing, and it's large in the EU and established, and it's not that established here or in New Zealand. And I think in New Zealand they've got some decisions made by a big dairy company that's going to force people towards this. But effectively it's a beef calf coming out of a dairy cow that, in an Australian point of view, and remember 70% of restaurants around the world use Australian beef, McDonald's restaurants use Australian beef, creates a whole new pool of red meat. And Jason talks about the growing demand for red meat around the world. To me, this starts to lean into that a little. So there's that, solves potential animal welfare issues, but from a digitisation point of view, in Australia we're ahead of the field, but in the US they're capturing this data at birth. And anyone's interested, I can show you some photos of a calf nursery I was in New Mexico recently, and it's really super impressive. So that allows us to get that data to come through. And then the important part then so that's digitisation, that's resilience, but then from a sustainability point of view, there are some benefits here from a CO2 equivalent allocation that could work for all of us as well. So we like this, and we're having a look at it, and I think that in speaking with some packers around the US recently, these cattle grade well, they could grade better, and they're interested in it because it can give them that uniform flow of production. And I think the opportunity here in Australia is a really solid one for Angus especially, to be able to develop something that might move this along. In order to move it along, we've hired a team of people to help us understand it. We're still learning about it. We've still got a long way to go, but we've got that team. We put together an event down in Victoria, in dairy country, last October, which was really well attended, and I think the photo, this is that, and there's some real interest out of that, not just from the dairy guys, some of the dairy guys, but because it should mean more income for them. There was some real interest in the meat packers, which was good, because and a number of them have already put their money where their mouth is and are developing. One of them is developing a pretty serious calf nursery operation in Victoria on the back of it. We've also sent our guys up to the US, and they've just run through, and I can see a few hats of people that we spent time with in Wisconsin and other places. So yeah, we're like this one, and we're excited by it, so we'll see where that leads. We're really, I mean, MLA is good at bringing people together. This is great. And I don't do this very often, and as is obvious, but one of the main reasons I want to be here is that we really believe, this is my view anyway, we talk about the beef industry as one whole, but the reality is I see us as pretty siloed, and we don't really connect as well as we could. And we want to change that. We're not going to be able to do it ourselves, but we want to start that process ourselves, because we think it's necessary for us to be successful in our business, as I've mentioned a few times, around data, around relationships, around programs, around resilience, to bring groups together and have that discussion, and start sharing thoughts and ideas. We started with an event in Rockhampton a couple of years ago, 18 months, getting just that. You know, we got the Ag Force guys, we got packers, we got academics, we got the MLA came along, obviously. We're really strong and good for that. And when we just started talking, and out of that has come a few things. We've got this, you might hear soon, this Tassie to Townsville. We're looking to create hubs of producers that are happy to share data, happy to share best practice, etc., so that we can develop that through. And it's on us to start sharing what we're after and what works for us, and how we might pay a little bit more if we could do that, and get that exchange going. So that's one thing that we're really working hard on. And then the next thing that we're working on, and Jason touched on this as well, but we can do all the work in the world, and it could be incredible, and it could be exactly what we're all after, but if we don't measure it, and we don't report it, and we don't have some sort of credible third party, hand on heart, verifying it, then it's for naught. I mean, it's good work and it'll be good, but so MMRV is a really important part of what we're doing. So we're just now starting to work with formalising an arrangement with AgriWebb and Regrow around that MMRV, and that will tie into Tassie to Townsville, so that we can then start engaging and collecting data and learning how things might work better. And Regrow are going to start helping us define, because as Jason says, we don't know, and we're just trying to work out how we define where we need to be and how do we define the solutions. There'll be not one silver bullet, there'll be a lot of them, and we're just trying to work out that. So you may hear a little bit more about this, but we're enthused by that relationship. We're looking at feed additives, and these are a couple of things. Asparagopsis, everyone's talking about it. We're trialling it. We don't know. We don't know where that's going to go. On paper, it sounds good, and on it. And if then our view is if you can start stacking. I'm really looking forward to hearing about the methane genetics work after lunch. Those genetics into beef on dairy, which gives you that lower CO2 equivalent, into then some feed additives, then we could be stacking it up and getting something reasonably interesting. So the Asparagopsis is one. There's some synthetic ones around, which no doubt you all know about. But this Energen corn, I just put that there because that's something we're looking at in the US, and the pitch is that it increases feed efficiency of beef cattle by 5%. with those decreased emissions. In our language, you get them in a box quicker, so you've got fewer days alive. You improve the water efficiency, and the stats there are, for every 10,000 head being fed Energen, there's an emission savings of 1,640 metric tonnes of CO2 equivalent and 184 acre feet of water saved. It's a mouthful, but cost per tonne of saved emissions is $48 US a metric tonne, and that's where we're sort of heading. We're trying to put a number on. I know we don't want to be too definitive, but where we're heading is, what's that number? Is it 48? Is it 72? What's the number of that every program we do? So that's interesting, and so we're working on that and a few other feed additives programs. So I just finished by saying that I just encourage people to be thinking this way. If you take anything out of today, I know this group of people is really should be and is quite advanced on the digitisation, but with your commercial partners, that's the message. I just think we're all in this together, and so if we can start encouraging that and partnering more along the supply chain, I think that's going to be best for all of us. From a McDonald's point of view, there will be some announcements coming, sooner or later, with more definitive numbers around what we're looking at. We still don't know. We're just working on the fact that there's only 7 summers till 2030, so we've got to start. We can't wait for those definitive. So we're trying to move things along, but that'll come. And I personally think that Australia is of all the markets we deal with, in an amazing position to lead. And as Jason says, the base is there, and I think this market's in a really good position to lead. So we have a huge amount to learn. That's why I'm here, and we're looking forward to catching up with you for a coffee this afternoon and maybe a few beers tonight and learn a bit more. So thank you for your time.